Hi, I'm Dweezil Zappa, and you're watching LoudGuitars.com.
Hey guys, it's Drew from Loud Guitars, and I'm here with the son of the legendary Frank Zappa. He's going to give us a quick tour of his rig. He's in L'Assomption, Quebec tonight, doing Zappa Plays Zappa. How you doing, Dweezil?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Could you give us a little walkthrough on your current rig and tell us what it was like to assemble this for this gig?
Yeah, it looks pretty complicated, and it is for the most part, but in some ways it's easier than other versions of the rig I've had, because every time we learn new music, I have to take into consideration the equipment that my dad used to make certain sounds, and so oftentimes the rig has to change to feature the things that we need to do. But when you look at the big picture of all the songs you have to cover, you have to have enough flexibility in the rig to do lots of different things. And so what I was trying to accomplish with this version of the rig is I had to go back to using two fractals, mainly because it's like using two different amplifiers that I can send different signals to each side. So I have basically a signal path that goes to each machine, and then I have some stuff that is common to both machines. So while they both have their own identity, I can make weird combinations of analog fuzz pedals in front of each fractal so that they have a specific kind of sound. But I really did it because of the Dynaflanger sound that I have to recreate, which that's envelope based, and you have to have the envelope in front, and it's really one side that needs to have the effect, and the other side has to stay stable. So in order to make the envelope work the right way, I had to build a rack to work this way, and it's fairly complicated, but it's mainly just to get this one sound to work right, so. And that sound is this. I'll show you. It's basically what you have is the Dynaflanger sound is made out of there was a piece of equipment called the Dynaflanger that was made in the 70s, and it's like a time modulation device, so it can do flanging and delay and stuff, but it had an envelope section, so when you hit it with the envelope, it will change the delay time, and it will make it go sort of out of tune, from like 0 to 100 milliseconds, depending on how hard you hit the string. But if you have one side doing that while the other side's stable, you get a really cool stereo effect, especially when you use a wah-wah and make it go even more extreme. So I'm assuming we got a good enough level to hear that. I could make it louder just in case.
Sure, you can go ahead and do that.
One other pass here just in case it works better. So yeah, again, the demonstration of this is really so you can hear without the wah, you hear a little bit of a doubling effect. But when the wah comes in, you really hear it do something. You hear it sort of like ping one side, so like we could find out which side. I think it's this side that's really going. It sounds like a sick duck.
It does. It's very, very cool.
Compared to the other side, which is normal. But they put the two together, and you get the. So it's good for really expressive playing, and that's one of the hard sounds to recreate. Each fractal is set up to work in a way where I can have them run in stereo or mono, depending on the patch, and I can do interesting things with expression pedals and panning and all kinds of extra stuff. So it's it's a pretty extensive thing that can be programmed. But for the most part, I try to keep the things as simple as I can.
Awesome. Now, could you give us a quick rundown of the complete signal path and how it functions side to side, basically?
Sure. The guitar, it starts here. It goes into the tuner, and the tuner is going, I believe, to the wah, and then we have these other effects that are, all of these things are in front of both fractals. But then when you get over here, this pedal board is in loops that can be switched in and out via MIDI. And so this is where you get to the autonomous sides of either fractal. So some of these go to the top fractal and some of these go to the bottom fractal. And that way I'm able to make combinations of different fuzz pedals in front of each fractal. And then I can also use all the effects in the fractal as well. So, you know, I can have things happen where I can have that wah on that board, but that can be after certain fuzzes or after, you know, certain kinds of effects, and I can have wahs in here that will be before. So I can have 2 or even 3 wahs in one patch that all make different filter combinations. So it gets interesting with that kind of stuff. But then I have these eventides that are in the loops, and I have the loops set up so that I can have regular stereo or just one side of the loop or the opposite side of the loop, so I can create similar kind of dynaflanger imaging with other kinds of effects. And then these things right here are just a simple way to turn off the speakers so that I can, if I have to repower these things, we don't have a giant bump in the speakers, you know. So this is just like a passive attenuator type of thing, but it's like a good way to test both machines. You know, you can easily turn one off and be in front of everything. It's got a volume knob, so it's good for safety and for programming. But there's 4 speakers. The top machine has the outside, and the bottom machine has the inside too. So I can, if I wanted to, have like a clean sound in the middle and a distorted sound on the outside, or any combination of panning that I want, you know. And I can have one thing that's panning between both sides like this, while something else is stable. So it's almost like a surround sound kind of a setup. So it takes a while to make good demonstrations of all the stuff that's in it, but there's some really cool things that I can make happen with it.
Absolutely. Now, normally you see when people are using fractal units, you don't see monitoring on stage, especially with you using in-ear systems. Now, I would imagine this is because you actually really want to feel and hear what you're doing and have that behind you.
It's a combination. I don't necessarily need that for me. Like if these weren't here, it would be weird for the audience because they would hear no direct sound of the guitar on stage. So if they were sitting too close to the PA, they'd hear my guitar behind them. So this is really more for spill on the stage, because I hear the sound that I need to hear in the in-ears, and I don't really focus on what I'm hearing behind me. If it wasn't there, I would still be able to play fine, you know.
Okay, I saw an interview a while back where you talked about your father's signature guitar and that the Gibson really hadn't quite finished it yet. There was a question of frets and a few other things. Has a final rendition been done?
The final version now, they made 400 of them and they sold out of them pretty quickly, and they were able to match the fret wire, get the action the same, and make the final tweaks since the last time I was talking about the guitar. And it actually became really my favorite guitar I've ever played. It's so easy to reach the top frets, and it has such low action, very, you know, slim neck, so it's easy to play chords and easy to play fast and difficult parts that are in the music.
Do you find it's a stable guitar traveling as much as you do?
It has been really good, and even surprisingly, this tremolo has stayed in tune pretty well. You know, as long as I put something to lubricate the strings here, I can actually use that. I don't do it for like eruption-style dive bombs, but you know, for some basic tremolo stuff, it actually works really good.
Now, speaking of strings, what string gauge are you using on the guitar, and what kind of secret sauce are you using for the nut?
This the other day I got some in Chicago, and it was I can't remember the manufacturer, but they call it nut sauce, which of course always sounds weird when you're talking about it. And then the strings are Ernie Ball 9 through 46.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Dweezilla guitar clinic that you do in the summers. Have you selected a date for that yet?
Normally we had been doing it in July. Next year it may be a different date. We haven't actually firmed that up, but I have been doing Dweezilla classes on the road before the shows, and it's been kind of an interesting mix of people that show up. Lately it's been a lot of younger players, and all varying levels of skill, and that's what we see at school as well. People that are total beginners all the way up through pretty advanced players. But it's fun because when I come out here on the road and I'm playing a lot and practicing a lot, I come up with new ideas and things that I'm trying. So when I'm able to do these classes with people, they're getting fresh information like, hey, I just was working on this last night, and that kind of stuff. So it becomes a fun way to share new information.
So you really enjoy the teaching aspect of it. Do you yourself still find yourself going and looking for new things to learn and to develop your playing even more?
Yeah, I mean, every tour I try to incorporate one or two new elements that are things I've never done on the guitar before, because we record a lot of things and I want to be able to hear some progression and all of the things. So the main thing that I've been focusing on lately is trying to redistribute notes on the guitar the way a drummer might. So to think of the low strings as the kick drum and the tom toms, and the higher strings as the cymbals, the snare, and all that kind of stuff. So I've been working out rhythmic patterns that that essentially emphasize that kind of concept, and it's creating some pretty interesting results, because what happens is they're repeating patterns that the band can hear and then support, and the drummer knows what the pattern is, so he can play along with me on certain things. So you get some spontaneous synchronicity in some of these things, and it becomes really interesting. It sounds like, well, how do they do that? But there's pattern recognition stuff in it, and it's pretty cool.
How often do you change the setup with this band?
You mean the songs night after night? It really depends. This tour is fairly lengthy, so we'll be introducing new songs whenever we can. But that's problematic to how the songs are arranged on the floor in terms of like how I can access the sounds. So that takes time to plan and program. So we don't change it so drastically because I haven't had enough time to do the programming.
You must be anxious to get back to your material and start working and touring and that stuff.
Eventually, I would love to have a good spell, a good chance to work on some of my own stuff. But usually what happens is, we will tour and maybe do about 100 shows a year as Zappa Plays Zappa. And then when I'm home, I can be home and not even touch a guitar for 3 or 4 months, because that's the time when I will be spending time with my wife and kids and just away from all this stuff. But then I have to jump back into the touring. So usually I don't find that window of opportunity. So it's a hard balance of like when and where you can find the time to write and record. And so, but I've been much more interested in trying to make the time for that now.
You started this roughly 5-6 years ago, right?
A little bit longer, yeah, 2006.
Okay. Was there ever a point when you started that it was super emotional for you doing this?
Yeah, it still can be. There's material that music has that intangible thing that you can't quite describe, but it has the ability to sort of attach itself to your life memories, and so music that gives you total recall on good and happy memories and other sad memories or whatever it can affect you, and that's why obviously they use music in films to bolster emotional content. So I have a strong attachment to this music, so it is emotional, and certain songs have made me very emotional multiple times throughout this whole process.
It must bring back some pretty interesting memories from when you were a kid.
Yeah, it's all good. But it's the thing about it is some of the melodies are really uh, things that are just really part of my DNA. I mean, it's like I know these things from like being a baby. So
Yeah, it all looks very natural from where I was sitting out there, that's for sure. Let's break away and talk a little bit about this Strat here.
okay, the Strat is it's it's essentially built on the same sort of premise as the Eric Johnson Strats are, and the neck shape and everything is kind of pretty much the same as that, only we added one extra fret. We had to get Eric Johnson's approval to have it a 22 fret neck, but the difference is, the bridge is brass and the nut is brass, which Frank had on one of his guitars, so I was going for a little bit of that. And then of course the little image of Frank is supposed to be like if you cut the tree down and you got right into the middle of the tree, you would see this picture of Frank in the tree. All right, so it's like you hear of these stories of people who see Jesus in a tortilla, and then they make like a museum in their kitchen because it's like, oh, don't touch my tortilla, So it's that kind of joke, like, oh, you just found the image of Frank in the wood. And the other nod to another player on this is the broken horn here. This sawed-off piece, but we left the screw. This sawed-off piece is a little nod to Jeff Beck. He has a guitar that has a broken pickguard like that. So this guitar has like a little hint of a lot of Strat players.
Very, very cool. What pickups were you using in the guitar?
That's Eric Johnson pickups in that one.
So it's all stock. Now, what are the differences, if any, between your setups on your guitars and your dad's guitars originally?
Well, growing up, I played his guitars a lot, so I got used to the feel of them, and he always had really low action, so that was something that I got used to. So most of my guitars have pretty low action, as low as they can tolerate without buzzing,
Do you use different presets for the Strat and the SG, be it that this is humbuckers, this is single coils? Are they pre-programmed differently?
Yeah, I have to do that because they also have a different output and just a totally different character. The good thing is that the system, as it's designed, is it allows whatever guitar you're plugging into have its own personality really come through. So, if I play that guitar on presets that are made for this, some of them might sound pretty good, and some of them might really not work at all because it's just a totally different kind of EQ curve, and gain structure. So you definitely need to dial it in for each instrument that you're playing.
Tweezel, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us, man. Have a great show tonight.
I appreciate it. Thanks. A little bit of that, and then of course the little image of Frank is supposed to be like if you cut the tree down and got right into the middle of the tree, you would see this picture.